Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast and the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now, on to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Gentlemen, this is probably going to be the most important episode that you listen to this year, maybe that you listen to ever. We are going to get into a topic called How Feminism is Destroying Co-Parenting. It is going to be intense and it is going to be raw. But before we jump in, fellas, let's welcome the new members to the Divorced Advocate community. We have quite a few this week. It is Kyle, Paul, Jamie, Johnny, Scott, and Jared, all new members of the Divorced Advocate community. If you are not a member, check it out at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Just Google it or go directly to thedivorcedadvocate.com. We've got all kinds of resources for you there, from free to paid. Just get plugged in and get the support that you deserve and that you need there at thedivorcedadvocate.com. All right, fellas, how feminism is destroying co-parenting. Modern feminism has moved far beyond equality. Today, it's about control, and nowhere is this more obvious than in the aftermath of divorce. In custody courts, in legal systems, and in the culture itself, divorced fathers are being systematically pushed aside, not because they failed their children, but because they don't fit the feminist-approved narrative of what a post-divorced family should look like. If you're a father going through divorce or already fighting to stay in your child's life, I'm sure you've already felt this. You're not just up against an ex, you're up against the culture that paints men as disposable and women as default victims, no matter the facts. If you stand up for your rights, you're quote unquote controlling. If you express frustration, you're quote unquote dangerous. If you want shared custody, you're quote unquote trying to hurt her. Every move you make is twisted through a lens designed to cast doubt on your motives and minimize your role. The system, backed by decades of feminist legal theory and cultural propaganda, don't see you as a co-equal parent. It sees you as a liability to be managed. And the damage doesn't stop with you. Your children are the ones who suffer the most, emotionally, psychologically, and developmentally, when ideology is allowed to override the truth. They lose not just time with their father, but the stability, identity, and love that only a strong, present dad can give. Fellas, this episode isn't about playing victim. It's about waking up, standing up, and fighting smart, because you can protect your children from this. But it starts with understanding what you're up against and refusing to play by a script that was written to erase you. So let's talk about how feminism has poisoned co-parenting. For decades, feminism pushed the simple theory, or has pushed a simple binary. Women are victims, men are oppressors. This mindset isn't confined to the workplace or the university. It follows couples into family court, into parenting plans, and into every text or custody exchange. And this is the problem now, is that it's getting codified. Once a marriage ends, that ideology doesn't go away. It intensifies. Feminism, as it functions today, gives ex-wives a moral license to treat fathers not as co-parents, but as adversaries, and gives the legal system and public culture the framework to justify it. Let's break down just how this shows up, and then I'm going to talk about how you can combat it. Now, I just want to be clear here, though, that this is not every single divorce. This is not every single X. But this is a theme that has become frustrating in the more than 5 years that I've been working with dads, that I see as something that has been the battle for dads to have to go through nonstop, and it is the default way that things have been showing up, and how it's showing, and we're going to talk about now how this is showing up, because you need to be aware of it, because it underlies and undergirds everything that you are going to be dealing with, or you are dealing with through this process and post-divorce. Okay, so how does it show up in the courtrooms? Feminist legal theory has deeply influenced family law. Judges, guardians ad litem, social workers, many are trained or guided by material steeped in gender ideology. The result? Mothers are presumed nurturing, fathers are presumed secondary. Even when both parents worked, even when the father was active and involved, courts often default to placing children with the mother. Also, allegations against fathers are taken as truth. You are guilty and proven innocent. Thanks to the quote-unquote believe all women mentality, a baseless accusation can derail a custody case, poison a father's reputation, or lead to supervised visitation without evidence. I see and I hear about this every single day, and it's disgusting. Fathers must prove their worth. Mothers are presumed essential. Fathers are expected to prove they deserve a seat at the table. And even then, it's often a smaller one. Another way that this shows up is in public opinion. Fathers as villains, mothers as victims. Public opinion doesn't come out of nowhere. It's shaped by media, by institutions, and by decades of cultural messaging driven by feminist narratives. And in the context of divorce and custody, that messaging has turned fatherhood into something to be viewed with suspicion. Modern feminism has flooded the culture with one theory: women as the brave protectors of children, men as the potential threats. That theory doesn't just harm dads, it trains everyone from neighbors to teachers to judges to see fatherhood through a biased lens. It also shows up with withholding becomes protection, but only for mothers. Let's talk about that. Withholding becomes quote unquote protection, but that's only true for mothers. When a mother denies a father access to his children, it's rarely questioned. People assume she must have a good reason. She's protecting the children, keeping them quote unquote safe, or quote unquote maintaining stability. No one asks for proof. No one demands accountability. But if a father were to withhold his children, even temporarily or in response to actual harm, the reaction flips. He's controlling. He's dangerous. He is quote unquote using the children as a pawn. The exact same behavior is interpreted in opposite ways solely based on gender. Another, a father's fight for time is framed as control. When men push for shared custody, they're often accused of trying to control their ex or punish her. The idea that a father might genuinely want to be involved in his child's life doesn't compute in the feminist-shaped narrative. The assumption is that his legal battle must be about his ego, his persistence must mean he's abusive, his refusal to quote-unquote just accept limited visitation proves he's dangerous. Meanwhile, mothers are praised simply for showing up. Another way, the media, fathers as fools, strangers, or threats. Fathers as fools, strangers, or threats. That's how we're portrayed. Turn on any action sitcom, any movie, any commercial, and see how fathers are portrayed. The dad doesn't know how to pack a lunch, the dad who forgets the kid's birthday, or the clueless, emotionally stunted goofball who's barely competent on his own. These aren't just jokes, fellas. This is propaganda. They reinforce the idea that fathers are less capable, less nurturing, and less essential. So when a real dad shows up in court fighting for his rights, the cultural script is already written. He's either lying, unfit, or unnecessary. Even so-called positive portrayals of single fathers often isolate them, showing them triumphing despite their circumstances, not because they were ever given a fair shot in a functioning co-parenting relationship. What's the real world impact? Public perception affects everything. We cannot deny that. Judges read news headlines and watch the same TV shows. Schools often contact mothers by default, even when fathers are equally involved. Friends, family, and even therapists may unconsciously side with the mother simply because they've absorbed the cultural bias. It's becoming a self-reinforcing cycle. Fathers are seen as secondary, treated as secondary, and then blamed for being absent. In relationships and co-parenting dynamics, from partnership to power struggle, modern feminism doesn't end when the relationship ends. In many cases, it escalates. Post-divorce, the feminist framework does not encourage healing, cooperation, or shared parenting. It promotes control, division, and dominance under the guise of quote-unquote empowerment. Instead of advocating for equal parenting, it teaches many mothers to treat their former partners not as allies in raising a child, but as threats to be managed, silenced, or eliminated from the equation. Another way, control is disguised as empowerment. I just touched on that. One of the most toxic exports of feminist ideology in family life is the idea that, quote unquote, setting boundaries means total control over the post-divorce dynamic. Mothers are told, don't compromise, don't co-decide, dictate. If your ex disagrees, label it, quote unquote, emotional abuse. Micromanaging the father's access, interfering with his parenting time, dictating who can be around the kids, canceling or modifying parent plans unilaterally, all of it is encouraged as a form of quote-unquote empowerment. It's not co-parenting, it's gatekeeping. What should be shared decisions, holiday plans, medical appointments, bedtime routines are often seized by one parent and justified by feminist narratives that frame all parental involvement as intrusive or suspect. Another is fatherhood is undermined at every turn. Feminism encourages a subtle or sometimes overt devaluation of the father's role. The message is clear. Dad is optional. Let's try that again. I should show up. If you can't tell, I'm already fired up. I've been fired up about this now for a while, and this is the culmination of all of this. Dad is optional, replaceable, or inherently flawed. This plays out when the mother registers the child in a new school without consent. She unilaterally decides what doctor the child sees, what religion, if any religion, I should say, the child follows, or whether therapy is needed with no input from the father. She dismisses the father's parenting style as, quote, too strict or, quote, emotionally unavailable, even if it's just different, not harmful. And that's part of what's getting codified, which is very, very dangerous. When a father speaks up, asks for equal say, or pushes back, he's labeled as difficult, controlling, or worse, which we're getting to is abusive. The result, he's pressured to stay quiet, to keep the peace, sacrificing not just his rights, but his presence in his child's life. And I can't tell you how much I see this lately and it makes me so angry. Guys that are just trying to keep the peace because they're afraid to lose the little time that they might already have with their kids. So this makes the child a weapon. The most damaging consequence of this feminist-fueled dynamic is that the child stops being a person and becomes a tool. It's used to extract money through inflated support demands, used to inflict punishment by restricting access, spreading lies, or turning them against their father, used to gain moral leverage in court and therapy or among mutual friends and family. In this power game, the child's needs are no longer central. The agenda is. And we've seen that over and over again. What's the justification? Quote unquote, I'm doing what's best for the child. But in reality, it's often what's best for the mother's ego, financial gain, or post-divorce image. And it leaves the child emotionally torn and developmentally imbalanced. So the real victims are your children. When feminism turns post-divorce parenting into a battlefield, the real casualties aren't the parents, they're the kids. They don't care about ideology. the kids that is. They don't care about legal strategies or narratives or of empowerment. They care about love. They care about structure. They care about truth, and they care about connection. And when one parent, usually the father, is erased, minimized, or vilified, that foundation cracks. This isn't just parental conflict. It's a slow psychological injury being done to your children under the banner of protecting them. They grow up with half a parent. Children need both masculine and feminine influences. They need the balance, not just emotionally, but developmentally. Boys need their fathers to model strength, discipline, and identity. Girls need their fathers to model what real male love and leadership looks like. We've talked about this on the show many times. That is something that only you as a father can provide to your children. But when dad is removed, reduced to a visitor, or cast as a threat, that foundation gets ripped out from under them. They may internalize confusion, insecurity, or distrust. They may over-identify with one parent and reject the other. They may feel torn between loyalty and survival, loving dad, but afraid to show it. And this happens all the time in parental alienation. This leads to long-term emotional instability, identity confusion, where we're seeing a ton of this, and problems forming healthy relationships later in life, which is tragic. They're denied balance, discipline, and perspective. So let's be blunt about this. Mothers and fathers parent differently, and that's a good thing. That is good. Fathers tend to bring structure, accountability, boundaries, and a different emotional tone that balances the household dynamic. When that's missing, what happens? Rules get inconsistent, consequences get blurred, emotions run the show instead of values and structure. Kids raised in a one-sided household are often deprived of critical life lessons, resilience, delayed gratification, respect for authority, because the other half of the equation has been locked out. We've talked about it many times on this show. All of the studies show that kids that have fathers that are involved in their lives have exponentially higher quality of adult life than kids that do not. You are important and necessary. So continue on. They're taught their father is lesser or worse, and this is where it's getting really bad, that they're dangerous. That's where the damage, the real damage is done. When this feminist narrative dominates a mother's approach to co-parenting, the messaging to the child is often subtle but constant. You hear quotes like, "Your dad doesn't really care. He only wants time with you to hurt me. He doesn't know how to raise you right." Even without these words, this gets communicated through tone, body language, and omission. That's big, omission. Dad's opinion isn't considered. His calls are screened. His gifts or advice are minimized. The child absorbs this as, quote, "my dad must not matter." Worse still, if the father is labeled dangerous or toxic based on nothing more than disagreement or noncompliance with mother's agenda, the child is trained to fear the very person who loves them unconditionally. That's not just manipulation, my friends. It's psychological abuse, and it's happening all the time. It's not just unfair, it's abuse, but it's abuse that is masked as ideology. Let's call it what it is: stripping a child of a present, loving father because he doesn't conform to a feminist-approved mold is not empowerment. It's not protection. It's not setting boundaries. It is abuse. It's abuse of the father, but more critically, it's abuse of the child. They are being used as emotional shields, financial weapons, and ideological trophies in a war that they never, ever signed up for. All right. So that is what you're up against. That is what is going on. That's the lay of the land that you need to be aware of. But what can you do as a father? And so I say, and I started this with that, not to scare you, but to wake you up. You have got to be awake and aware to what's going on in the situation. I know that that I am a little bit skewed because I am in this every single day with lots of dads that are going through difficult and challenging times. This isn't every divorce. This isn't every ex, but this is the underlying theme based upon our culture and our society that you are dealing with. So you've got to be aware of what is going on. And it's based in feminist ideology. All right. So, but what can you do as a father? You're not going to be able to dismantle the culture or the courts in a day, but you are not powerless. Your job isn't to whine or surrender. As difficult and challenging as this is, as heartbroken as you might be, your job is to lead. Your job is to lead. Your job is to protect your children. Your job is to assert your place in their lives with clarity and strength. Let me tell you again what your job is, fellows. It is to lead, protect your children, and assert your place in their lives with clarity and strength. So how do you do this? Assert your role relentlessly. Do not stop. Do not go away. Never act like a guest in your child's life. That's exactly how the system wants you to feel, like your fatherhood is conditional, revocable, or optional, and it is not. Demand 50-50 custody, not because it's quote unquote fair, but because it's what your kids need. 50-50 custody is what your kids need. Be consistent and present. Don't just show up. Invest in your kiddos. Help with their homework. Know their teachers. Know their friends. Be visible, involved, and irreplaceable. Don't settle for scraps. Parenting time is not a reward, fellas, to earn. It's a right to defend. So if you're not getting it, defend it with your life, whatever you need to do. Don't try to appease a hostile ex. You can't reason with someone who's committed to controlling you. If your ex uses feminist buzzwords to weaponize the kids or twist the narrative, recognize it for what it is. It's strategy. It's not sincerity. Don't play defense. Don't over-explain yourself. Respond calmly and strategically. Keep it about the kids and keep records. Stop chasing peace at the expense of your authority. Appeasement feeds the fire. This is a huge one. I see guys all the time letting things slide on parenting plans to make it okay to not rock the boat. And that is the worst possible thing you can do. Remember, the goal isn't to be liked by your ex, it's to be respected by your children. Avoid the just move on crowd. You don't walk away from your kids, you level up and fight better. You have to level up and fight better. You're not moving on. It's not about a revenge. It's about restoration of your rights, your bond with your children, and the meaning of fatherhood itself. You're not just protecting your kids from a hostile ex or a biased system. You're protecting them from a culture that wants to erase you. Oh, wait, that's a different section. Sorry. Final word. Let me cross that off too, so I don't screw that up again. I wrote this all out because I wanted to be very clear with you guys about all this. So let's talk about the fact that this is a fight for more than just parenting time. Feminism in its modern weaponized form hasn't empowered families, it's fractured them. It didn't liberate motherhood, it politicized it. It hasn't protected children, it's turned them into bargaining chips in an ideological warfare. In the world of post-divorce parenting, the ideology pits mother against father, labels authority as oppression, and turns healthy fatherhood into something to be feared or sidelined. And the cost? Kids grow up confused about what love looks like. Boys who never learn how to lead, girls who never learn what to expect from a good man. Generations raised without the anchor only a father can provide and only you can provide. Let's be clear. Your job as a father isn't just to navigate the system or to cope. That is survival, and survival isn't enough. You're here to push back, to disrupt the narrative, to reclaim what the culture wants to strip away: your role, your name, and your relationship with your children. So don't apologize for showing up. Don't shrink yourself to make others feel comfortable. Don't stay silent while the story is being written without you. And don't wait for permission to be the father your kids need. Control the narrative. You're not just fighting for time, you're fighting for your name, your reputation, your role, and your legacy. Document everything. Every exchange, every denied visit, every manipulative message. Assume everything will end up in court someday, and be ready. You are preparing yourself all the time. Keep communication clean, short, and factual. No sarcasm, no emotion, no rants. Let her look unhinged next to your calm. And then stand your ground in every space. And this is going to be important: in school and in court and in therapy, with dignity and facts. Never let your absence, silence, or hesitation tell your story for you. And then teach your children to think critically. Your kids are being fed subtle and sometimes direct lies about you, about men, and about what love and leadership looks like. Your response: live the truth in front of them. Let me say that again. What do you do? How do you respond? You live the truth in front of them. You show up on time. You follow through. You tell the truth. You speak well of their mother, even when she doesn't deserve it. That's how you show strength, not by tearing down, but by modeling maturity. Call out nonsense gently, but clearly. Teach your kids to ask questions, to think, to look beyond slogans and see character. They'll figure it out because you lived it. And then connect with other men who get it. You're not the only one going through this, but you might feel like you are if you're isolated. That's not a mistake. That's part of the system. That's a design. Divide men and disempower them. Don't fall for it, guys. Find strong fathers, not passive victims. Men who don't just vent, but fight smart. You're not going to find that on social media in some of these forums. Join private groups, networks, or healthy forums where fathers share strategy and legal tips, court prep, emotional tools, and real support. That's why we have the divorce advocate community. That's why you should get involved with it. That's what we do every single day, week, month of the year. Gentlemen, stand your ground, speak the truth, act like your children's future depends on it, because I'm telling you, it does. And never, never let a broken ideology steal your children from you. Fellas, I hope that was helpful for you. I know that was a lot. Go back, listen to it again, please. This is what you're up against, but this is also how you can fight it. Everything that we do here in the divorced advocate community is meant to support you in all of this. We've got thousands of guys that have been through the community, that are involved in the community from everywhere in the country, all across the world, that are dealing with this. And we want you to be part of this. We want you to get the support that you need and that you deserve. So become part of the community. If you found value in what you heard today, please share it with another dad that might be going through a divorce. Share it far and wide on your social media. Give us a star rating. Give us a comment. Do something that is not only going to help yourself, but help other dads as well. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I sincerely appreciate it, and have a blessed week. To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.